Okay, yeah, I know it's another Raylan video, but what do you expect? In all seriousness, there's gonna be more to talk about than just Iron Rifle, but there's plenty to cover, so I'll go ahead and get started. Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Niz. Today I'm gonna be going over my thoughts on Iron Rifle, and I assure you it's going to be thorough. First thing I feel like I should do is go over gimmick upgrades in general. In MOBAs, I really enjoy gimmick upgrades because they kinda break up the monotony of the game. And in Awesomenauts, you'll find plenty of these. Now, I'm not saying that an upgrade that increases the stat of an ability is bad. These upgrades are straightforward, easy to understand, and can set up any core build. Not to mention, more mechanics doesn't automatically mean fun. But gimmick upgrades that, well, being specific about them would do a disservice to them. So I'll go ahead and put them in categories. Awesomenauts has 3 types of gimmick upgrades that I'll mostly be going over today. The first one being gimmick upgrades that for most situations only have one type of application. Well, I'm sorry, it appears that I forgot how to human language for a second. I meant application. I usually edit those out, but that was just too bad. Such as Blackmail for Chucho, an upgrade which point is that if he misses his bomb, there's still an area of denial on it where if they step over that spot, they get stuck with the bomb anyway. In short, they're designed with one job and they do it. Now we're getting one that's more interesting, but not in the ways that I'd like it to be. And that's upgrades that are pretty much useless or make an ability useless without the inclusion of the other upgrade that counteracts its weakness. See Flashy Glasses, which increases the base damage of Raylan's snipe but also butchers her range. But both stages of her range upgrade counteract this. If you really want to nitpick, and I do, you would also need to buy Pump Rifle for it to scale decently. Unless you're going a droid only snipe build. I guess a better example would be Silent Killer, an old peel-off mask for Kitara. Silent Killer makes Kitara's basic attacks do more damage when the enemy is blind, slowed, stunned, silenced, or snared, while Peel-Off Mask's entire purpose was to proc blind on an opponent that she teleported to. Considering how unreliable blind can be, this upgrade was basically here only to make Silent Killer do more damage. Now that it's awakened, Silent Killer is basically an upgrade you get if your team has a lot of CC. I mean, it was already, but now you have no possible way of proccing it yourself. In short, the second type of upgrades are dependent on other upgrades for them to function. So I guess Silent Killer wasn't a very good example. Maybe Holy Cup is better because it needs one of the heal upgrades to scale decently? I'm getting off topic. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the third gimmick type. The third type are upgrades that add a whole new feature or mechanic to an ability. These are the abilities I get excited about. Yeah, sure, you can get this upgrade that allows you to do more damage with your throw. Or you can get an upgrade that lets you throw homeless gnomes at people. Sign me up! What's that? They also explode? Sold! So if somebody gets hit by the gnome while being thrown, you do more damage, but also you can throw gnomes at people by throwing backwards. Now that right there is the meaning of life. Another example would be Ted McPain's grenades on a shotgun. Gives them a bit more pushing power with a shotgun. With knockback, you can knock enemies straight into them. They can also provide area denial. That's pretty handy if you ask me. There are a few more upgrades that I like for Ted, but that's not what the video is about. I'm gonna go ahead and start talking about Iron Rifle. Raylan's Iron Rifle is, well, it's made to, well, okay, look, I love Iron Rifle. And for the most part, I think it's okay at doing its job. Now let me clarify. Iron Rifle's job is not what Iron Rifle thinks its job is. Iron Rifle thinks that its job is to negate CC as well as burst. What Iron Rifle's real job is to block a crowd control, with the exception of a few specific ones, and block some damage. This is because of the issues of Iron Rifle's properties. Iron Rifle is one of those weird cases of CC immunity upgrades. It's similar to Vinny and Spike's CC immunity, but there's some key differences. The first noticeable difference being that it does not have a set duration. It's based on the arming time of snipe. Once you fire, it's gone. Raylan's CC immunity is also a flat shield of 225 maximum damage on base, going up to just shy of 400 at level 20, meaning the CC immunity will either end on firing or when taking this much damage. That last part is what makes this a deal breaker for most people, because it means if they take a certain amount of damage during snipe, the CC immunity is null. You may be asking yourself, why does this ability do 2 jobs when it's not very good at either? Well, at least I was thinking that. Well, when I was thinking this aloud at one point, somebody commented about the fact that it allows the ability to be countered. And, well, yeah, it does. Remember earlier when I said it would stop a crowd control? Well, there's a very specific reason for that. That's because debuff immunity is not really that important when you're sniping. Being slowed or snared doesn't matter because you're stationary. The only thing you're gonna buy Iron Rifle for in the realms of stopping a CC is stuns, because stuns cancel snipe. But every stun in the game that can deal damage will destroy Raylan's barrier, with the 2 exceptions being Skulldir's throw and Deadlift's punch after lunge upgrade dealing a stun proc. But if Deadlift uses lunge on Raylan, it would get rid of the barrier in the first place, and Skulldir's third punch takes out Raylan's barrier with ease. So, my point being the shield can stop one stun and punish the enemy if they burn that stun. The only other form of CC it's really used to block is tethers from Swiggins and Smiles. With Smiles, you can prevent yourself from being dragged away, and with Swiggins, not only do you break the tether and not take break damage, but if you are in a weird enough position, you can drop down or take a jump pad. And Iron Rifle still promotes plenty of counterplay. The most obvious being break Iron Rifle, then proc the stun, but there's more to it than that. Take for example Raylan vs Froggy G. In one of Froggy G's abilities, he has a stun and a dash with iframes, making him a really rough matchup for Raylan. But say Raylan buys Iron Rifle and then snipes, and Frog tries to dash through her. He doesn't cancel snipe, he does an unimpressive amount of damage, and now he's out in the open and his dash is on cooldown. Now imagine the same scenario, but Frog has Hammer Pants. Hammer Pants is an ability that allows him to deal extra damage to enemies when he hits them near a surface. It also procs a stun, so Raylan goes into snipe with Iron Rifle on. Frog dashes through her but right behind her, allowing him to proc Hammer Pants. His initial stun was negated, but Hammer Pants was not. But the mind games don't even end there. Bear in mind that Frog's Splash Dash leaves him self-stunned for a moment, and to pull this off, Froggy G has to end up right behind Raylan, meaning where his dash ends becomes incredibly predictable. So let's go over the scenario one more time. Raylan puts a timer right behind her. Raylan activates Snipe with Iron Rifle. Frog dashes right behind her so he can still proc Hammer Pants and cancel Snipe, but now he's stuck in a time rift, and trying to follow up with Tornado would be dangerous. So Snipe might be cancelled, but it'd be dangerous to do much else, especially if Raylan's next to turret. So now Raylan has a deterrent to stop him from proccing Hammer Pants. So he's more likely to use Splash Dash to either get away from Snipe or have iframes when she tries to shoot him. At that point, she's on cooldown for 2 abilities, so who's the real winner? Now I'm going to talk about a new example to overthink, and that's Chucho vs Raylan. Say that Chucho lands a bomb on Raylan. She has 2 ways to immediately counter this. The first one I'm going to go over is activating Iron Rifle just before the explosion. Bear in mind that Iron Rifle blocks half of Chucho's base bomb damage, so you end up blocking a pretty hefty amount. Now here's what Chucho can do to counter that. Activating Iron Rifle requires for Raylan to be in snipe, making her stationary. If Chucho buys Trick Up Your Sleeve, he gets a second bomb that will land on her while she's sniping. The second bomb does just a bit more than what Iron Rifle blocked, meaning if Raylan saved herself from the brink of death with Iron Rifle, she just only bought herself more time. The second alternative she has, the much more BM friendly one, is putting down a time rift, standing in the middle of it while a bomb's on you, and teleporting away. If you do this soon enough, you'll be invulnerable while heading over to the shop and you'll take no damage. But Chucho even has a way to counter this, since purchasing 4 Advisor makes the ability proc damage over time, making it effectively impossible to teleport unless she heals the damage over time, which is healed by health kits and critters, and if she had access to those, she probably wouldn't be worrying about the bomb in the first place. Man, I never thought I'd see the day I'd be calling 4 Advisor useful. One last thing, there is a way to counter the counter of Trick Up Your Sleeve. Say that Raylan desperately has to reduce the damage of the bomb. Well, fortunately, Trick Up Your Sleeve takes the liberty of going incredibly high up when blowing up. Like, too high. So if Raylan activates Snipe with the glass panel just above her, it'll just land on the glass panel and not on her. So Iron Rifle is in a state where it promotes knowing your enemy and knowing when your enemy knows you. Check out all this 4D chess, except it's Awesomenauts, so it's more like 4D Connect 4. Connect 4D? My conclusion is that Iron Rifle's alright in the state that it's in now. In fact, ever since that fellow brought it up, it was Gist by the way, pretty sure. I've learned to appreciate it for its flaws. It feels less like a brain-dead upgrade to cover up a weakness for a character. I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but looking at the way that stuns are designed, I like to think that it is. Either way, it's grown on me over the years. So I guess it's me going on record and saying that my current stance on upgrades is that if there's an upgrade that can counter or not, there should be an alternative strategy or upgrade to allow them to work around it. And I welcome upgrades like these that not only encourage different strategies or builds, but also provide multiple uses. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. I hope you guys have a nice day and be safe.